Hotty toddy, Ole Miss fans, and welcome to the Brad and Chad Show on the OM Network. Brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans, made in the USA. This is the show by and for Ole Miss fans, where you'll get expert insight and analysis on Ole Miss athletics. And now, here are your hosts, former Rebels Chad Flowers and retired NFL star Bradley Sowell.
Podcast time.
Brad and Chad Show brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans, coming to you on February 15th, 2023, day after Valentine's Day. Football season officially over with the Super Bowl. We got baseball here, thankfully, to take the taste of basketball out of our mouth. Bradley Sowell, how are you today?
Chad, give me your Valentine's rundown. What'd you get? Did you get your wife anything, or are you at that stage kind of like us where it's like, all right, I got you something like a month ago and it was really nice, so it kind of counts for the next three holidays.
Bingo. She's got birthday in February as well, so that was kind of a, you know what, hey, we're going to treat this quarter for Valentine's. We'll get the kiddos something, a little balloon, stuffed animal, and we will be nice to each other all day, and that was kind of our Valentine's celebration.
Oh man, the longer you get married, the more you try to make up excuses around Valentine's Day. It's just unbelievable. So,
hey man, this is just a scheme by the card companies, man. This is not even a real holiday. It's all capitalistic bullshit. That's the way I'm going to look at it, at least, I guess, right?
Well, so my wife, she'll get something just to say she got it. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be like the smallest thing. I think she actually got like a bag of nuts, and it was like D's nuts, pickle nuts. And it's like, dude, like you just got me one little small thing just to say, hey, I got you something. What'd you get me? So,
she plays that game. Okay.
She played that game with me, but I got her something nice here, like the end of January. So I was like, hey, that's got to carry over. Like you got to divide that into fours, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was a nice gift. So it's going to probably take care of the next few holidays.
Oh, there you go. So you're thinking ahead. You're thinking smarter, not harder. I think that's really good to see. Did you get a chance to watch Super Bowl?
I did watch the Super Bowl, and
hell of a game, right?
Just two real good teams. Those teams were so equal, man.
Yeah.
And the difference in that game is so I think the Eagles were better, right? I think the roster was better, probably a little more talent, but the Chiefs were better where it counted. That's quarterback and head coach, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just hard. I mean, Andy Reid's just a beast. He schemes things up so well. And then, Patrick Mahomes is just a tad bit better than Jalen Hurts, So I feel like that was the difference. Although I had the Eagles, and I thought the Eagles should have won that game, but for whatever reason, man, they couldn't seem to pull away.
Patrick Mahomes, now obviously he has a long way to go to get to Tom Brady's status, but early in his career, he seems like the guy that if there's somebody that's going to get to that level, he's the guy. He's already got 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl rings. Dude, just the play that he made where he made the throw to Kelsey as he was getting tackled by one of the defensive linemen. I mean, what do? The defense plays it perfect. He still escapes, still makes the play. That's got to be infuriating to play against, and just the throws that he's able to make is just ridiculous.
Yeah, he is. What's crazy though, so Mahomes is unbelievable at making something out of nothing. But man, how many times do you feel like he was going to get injured in that game? I swear, every time he runs, his ankle's destroyed. It's like They tackle him and I don't know. It's just the weirdest thing ever, dude. But I think he's battling through an ankle injury there, and man, just an unbelievable player.
Yeah, some other kind of similar football news I found pretty interesting as we finally know when Oklahoma and Texas are going to be joining the SEC. So if you didn't see it, the SEC announced that those schools in the Big 12 finally came to an agreement, and following the 23-24 season, so this upcoming football, baseball, basketball season, that May or June, they will officially be members of the SEC. And so how this affects Ole Miss is now, especially on the football side, scheduling, right? So every year we play Vanderbilt. But now there's the conversation, are we going to 9 conference games? Are we staying to 8 conference games? I've even seen models where you're going to get 3 permanent teams that you play against, and then you're going to rotate everybody so you get to play home and away every other team. Basically, if you stay in school for 4 years, you're going to get to play at everybody's location, and everybody's going to come to Oxford. If that is the case, who are the 3 teams that you want every year?
Man, I've seen it broke down so many weird ways. You got to have Mississippi State in there, right?
Absolutely. That's a given.
Yeah, you got Mississippi State in there. I don't want to lose LSU either, but I just don't know, And then my thoughts are probably going to put us in there with Alabama as well. I think they're going to kind of go off of who's closest potentially. So I don't know, man. I mean, what do you think? What do you like?
So I think that what they're going to do is I think they're going to try to align this to get the best possible matchups every year.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to get Alabama. I do think that there's a chance we'll get LSU just due to some history. I think it will be State, Vanderbilt, and LSU. I think that's the way that they'll do it, because I do also think that they're going to throw some of the, not to be a backhanded compliment to us or some of the other schools, but, they're not going to put us with the powerhouses of your Georgias and your Alabamas, because I think that you don't want to just completely demoralize, that part of the conference as well. So I think that we're going to get Vanderbilt, State, LSU. I would be shocked if we got Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Oklahoma. I think they're going to play the matchup games with those. I think Texas A&M is going to be a yearly thing. Why wouldn't you want that? Because that's a ratings bonanza that you're going to get.
So you got to wonder if they're going to try to protect, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, some of those others, and try to make. They're going to want to put Georgia and Alabama together, obviously.
No, they'll do Auburn, Georgia, and then I think Alabama will keep Tennessee. And obviously Auburn and Alabama will stay. And then I would imagine LSU and Alabama would stay. I would think that that's going to be Alabama's 3, because those are the big ratings pushes that you see every year with Alabama games. And then you play Georgia every 2 years. I think that that's the way that they'll do it. They will go, because ESPN is going to be driving this ship as well. It's going to be. Ratings are going to play a big role in this, and that's where you're going to get the most juice.
I just feel like if you put Alabama and LSU together, though, they'll be, even both those teams could be great, and then all of a sudden it'll be holding one down by playing every year. So it's like you got to wonder if they're going to try to get the best. They're going to try to put a great team in every pod or however they do it, and then try to make it to where the other ones have to be exceptionally good to beat them every year.
Well, I think that if the model that I'm seeing is going to happen, there will be no divisions, right? And so what that means is you're taking the 2 best teams. Now, you may see more rematches in the SEC championship, which could suck, but if you're getting the 2 best teams in Atlanta, I think that's really what the goal is of the SEC championship. So even though you are going to be tied to maybe an Alabama every year, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you lose that one game to Alabama, there's no chance to make the SEC championship, right? So if they go that route, I wouldn't dislike it. And I think that's going to make things a lot more interesting, especially during football season.
And how sick would it be, honestly? Like think about how sick this would be is it if you played 12 games all conference. Just straight up like NFL. Like I know it'd be tough, but that year, my favorite season still is the COVID year.
COVID year, yeah.
Those 10 games every week was just like, all right, it's an SEC game. I don't care that I was happier going 6-4, 5-5 that year, whatever we went, because we won 5. I mean, we won SEC games. It felt like the NFL. I kind of wish college would do it, right? It's like, hey, you want money, you want real ratings. Let's stop playing. And Kiffin wants to stop crying about everybody that come to the stadium. Let's start playing some real ball. Let's play it like NFL. So that way, if you go 10-2. You're like, hey, man, my 2 losses were, everybody's going to be 10-2, right? So, the rosters are big in football, in college football. You should be able to handle 12 legit games, whereas in the NFL, you got the whole argument all the time there is, hey, 17 games, you only got 50-something people, like rosters smaller. College, you have 100 people or 85 people on the roster, and it's like, let's play some real meaningful games, dude. That you talking about some money, making some money? I would go to every. Yeah. There was no chance I would miss. Can you imagine back-to-back weeks of Oklahoma, Texas, LSU, then Georgia? I mean, it's like you're so freaking pumped. It's unbelievable. So I wish we would get to that.
Yeah, I think it would be. Obviously, your coaches are going to push back, right? Because you're going to have equitable scheduling across all the conferences before that happens, because you're going to hear all the bitching and moaning about how, the Big Ten doesn't do this. They play these non-conference games and they're guaranteed basically 2 slots in the playoff now because they're playing weaker schedules. So I agree with you. I think that would be more exciting. I just don't know how close we are to getting there. I think 9 games would be fun. Get us to 9. Still have to schedule at least one Power 5 opponent in your non-conference. That way you've got, just 2 of your kind of bullshit games that you have to play. I think I would be okay with that, at least for a few years, to kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, it's going to be fun either way, man. The college football is changing; it's evolving, right, with the whole paid structure thing. Kids are making tons of money. So it's time just to put a competitive product out there, right? The whole feel good of so-and-so versus so-and-so, like, dude, it's time to, if you're going to make it about money and stuff, let's start playing some real ball. Let's start playing real football and start playing in conference and, some big time matchups, right? We got to quit avoiding. I don't want to see Ole Miss play four cupcakes. I just don't. If it's about money and you really need to start generating money, for all this NIL stuff, like, dude, let's play some big time ball. And I just think it's funner, right? I mean, I think it's a lot funner. It kind of takes that whole, strength of schedule, stuff at the end of the year out of it, right? Hey, you all played each other. In the NFL, it doesn't matter. If you're 11-5, you can be just as good as a 14-2 team, right? You played everybody. You kind of know how good they are, right? So I wish we can get to that in college because honestly, you get teams that are 12-0, 11-1, and they really hadn't played a soul. So
and you see that in your product in the playoff, right? You see teams getting blown out because of that fact. It'll be interesting to see what Greg Sankey and the SEC does. We should know something within the next 2 to 3 months in terms of what the scheduling is going to look like. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to tackle this because it's going to be a real good talking point when that inevitably comes out. But the big news, especially in the Ole Miss circle, baseball is finally here. And, I said last week we were going to have a guest, and we had one lined up. Brett Huber, the number one closer in in Ole Miss history in terms of number of saves. He was going to join us, but he had a baby this week. So congratulations to him, his wife. They had a baby boy yesterday. So congratulations and best of wishes to them. We'll try to get Brett on a little later on this season so we can talk about the baseball team and what's going down in Oxford. But yeah, we wanted to dedicate this show to baseball, doing a preview of what the baseball team is going to look like. Obviously coming off a national championship season last year, what does the team look like going into this season? So the season begins this coming Friday at home against Delaware. First pitch scheduled for 4:00. We already have the weekend rotation, right? So we already know who the starting pitchers are going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No surprise on Friday. We're going to have, the freshman stud from last year. He's a sophomore now, but Hunter Elliott is going to be taking the hill. And then you've got your freshman Grayson Saunier. This is the guy that everybody's been talking about in fall camp. Oh. He's a kid from Tennessee, the Memphis area. And he's going to be taking the hill on Saturday. And then you've got transfer from Indianapolis, D2. You've got Xavier Rivas. He's going to be taking the hill on Sunday. Now, if he stays the number 3 starter, we'll find out. But that's how Bianco's going to run it out this weekend. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see what we have on the mound because you're having to replace the College World Series most outstanding player from last year, Dylan DeLucia, who, if we were doing this preview last year, his name might not even come up that much because of, we didn't know what we were getting with him. He was a transfer. But towards the end of the year, he was the glue that held the whole thing together and really put together that run for the Rebels.
Yeah, I think going into the season, man, that the rotation looks set, but you just never know. Like you said last year, we didn't know that two random guys would essentially come on the scene and actually carry us when you were counting on other guys. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does the rotation. I think that's going to be the difference, right? I think we've adding Ledge and both the Ethans, Ethan Groof or something like Ethan Ledge. Good, really good, players I think can replace some of the holes filled. But I think the key is going to be the pitching staff. Are they as good as advertised? I think you got a Doug Nikhazy type of player in Hunter Elliott that is, going to go out on the weekends, compete, give you a great chance of winning. The other guys on paper look good, but they are younger and a little bit untested. That's what makes me worried going into the year, right? Like, I think that's going to be the difference. If those guys are able to be serviceable and be good players, that'll be the difference in us making another run and, potentially searching throughout the year for who's that guy, to basically come out of nowhere. So, but all reports, man, the Grayson Saunier guy, I'm excited about him, man. He's hard-throwing righty, big, tall guy, 6'4". That we got some size. We got some really good size on the mound this year with him, and then Rivas as well. He's got good size as well.
Yeah, Saunier was drafted 19th round by the Rangers last year, so you've got a pedigree there. At least the scouts like what they saw. He's from Collierville, so they were able to see him a good bit, and the Rangers liked him enough to take him in the 19th round. Yeah.
And I think the difference there, I think he was one of those kids. I did a lot of research on him. His fastball was 90-91. With his size, they were hoping it would get to the mid 90s, which I think he can get it there now. But I'm hoping he's one of those kids that's 6'4", 200 that's going to start develop over the next year or two and get that fastball up into the mid 90s, and then consistently, and then you're talking about a whole different ball game. The reports were he could have been inside the top 5 rounds had his fastball had a little more velocity. So kid's a legit talent.
Yeah, he's got a 4-pitch mix, right? And that's kind of rare, especially a freshman right out of high school, being able to throw 4 pitches, command those pitches. He should be, if he's able to do what, the coaching staff thinks, then you're going to have a legit Saturday starter. And with Hunter Elliott, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch coming into your weekend, especially once conference play begins. But, the interesting thing about Rivas, I mentioned that he's a transfer, Division II school, Indianapolis. That's the same level Delta State's in, which is no slouch in baseball, but there's still remains to be seen how he's going to play against, Division I caliber talent. But he was 7-0 last year, 2.24 ERA, first team All-American by some publications. So he's got a decent pedigree for a Division II school. It's just going to be interesting to see if that translates once you get into SEC ball. So those are going to be the 3 guys that we run out this weekend. But as we saw last year, that can change. You've got other arms that can potentially get into the mix as well if one of those guys, goes down with an injury or is not able to, to really pick it up and be effective.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, Bianco's did a great job recruiting. He's tried to fill some holes. It's just going to be a matter if it always looks good on paper, right? Like that's the thing with baseball. And it kind of, what's funny is like a lot of guys will play these first couple weekends. You should be able to beat Delaware and some of these others. They'll kind of start playing itself out, right? I mean, there's a lot of talent in there. There's a lot of guys that they're excited about. A lot of big arms on the mound. I mean, there really are. You got quite a few freshmen in there that look really good or have looked good in the fall. So it'll be a matter of sorting itself out, man. I mean, it really will be fun to see.
Yeah. Now, the other question that the Rebels are going to have to look at is production in the middle of the lineup, right? You lose Tim Elko, one of the most popular, accomplished athletes in school history, right? 24 home runs, 75 RBIs last year. You have Kevin Graham, hit 335, 11 home runs, 51 RBIs last year. Those are your 3-4 slots that you're going to have to replace. Not to mention, I already said Dylan DeLucia, in the starting pitcher. You have Hayden Dunhurst, who was drafted. He was your catcher last year. Justin Bench, utility infielder. And the big one that a lot of people may not be thinking about is Josh Mallett. Now, if you go look at the Ole Miss website, he's still on the roster. He was supposed to play this year, but he's out for the season with Tommy John surgery. Yeah, so he was going to be your bullpen anchor this year. Coming in later parts of the season, later parts of the game. But now you've lost him, so replacing him in the bullpen, I think, is going to be one of those real critical pieces, because finding that mix in the bullpen, guys you can trust specifically. There's a lot of inexperience in the bullpen for the Rebels, and being able to find that good mix of guys that you can throw out against your Vanderbilts, your Mississippi States, your LSUs, that's going to be real critical to conference success.
Yeah, I think when we discuss middle of the lineup, I think you obviously you got the 3 pitchers that you're thinking, hey, like, going to need to be serviceable to be good again. But there's really like 5 people on this roster that can kind of make the difference, in my opinion. I think Peyton Chatney is going to be what he's going to be, right? He's always going to be that 280. Maybe he can get over 300 if he gets hot type of hitter. He's going to be a spark plug, good energy. I think we've seen Peyton Chatney. We know what he can do, right? I mean, he's not going to be the 350 hitter, I don't think. Maybe he has that year this year. But he's going to be a good piece of lineup. But I think if you look at Calvin Harris, TJ McCants, right? Those guys have got to take their game to another level, kind of like they did in the World Series, right? That was the difference in the World Series, and some of it was those guys were just producing down there. Calvin Harris was lights out, so was TJ McCants. Calvin Harris will be wearing number 2 this year, which is crazy to see. He's going to be a different number. Then you look at the next 2 guys. To me, are the 2 incoming guys: Ethan Ledge, Ethan Groof, or Groff, whatever you call it. Both those guys are pretty accomplished veterans. They played ball. They both hit well over 300. Those guys are going to have to produce. And then I think, I don't want to put this on Kemp Alderman, but Kemp he was good last year, really good player. He's had an unbelievable offseason. Kemp Alderman's going to have to be Tim Elko-ish like, right? Yep. Those 5 guys, in my mind, if those 5 guys are, the 3 that are already here, take a good jump and produce at now I'm a legit starter clip and really up their game with the 2 Ethans that came in, I think your lineup is going to be solid. Jacob Gonzalez is going to be what it's going to be, right?
Yep, All American.
He's going to be good. He's going to be number 3 hole, 2 hole, whatever. Kemp Alderman hopefully will be the team. So the real difference is those 4 to 5 guys. How good can their game be? How good can they take their game? And I think that's going to be really the difference. If those guys are average, we'll be an average team. And I think way to put it.
Yeah, I think one of the names that you mentioned was kind of a guy I had circled. That can really be the key to a successful season, especially on the offense, is TJ McCants, right? The guy exudes talent, right? He's still looked at in draft circles as a potential prospect to be drafted. It all hasn't clicked right now in the postseason last year in Omaha, pinch hit home runs. He hit one against Southern Miss in the Super Regional. The talent's there. There's no doubt about that. But being able to, hitting 236 is not going to get it done at the beginning of the lineup, right? He may be in the back of the lineup until he's able to show that he's able to get on base more, a lot less swing and miss. I think that's the guy that can really put everything together, because the names you mentioned, right? Some of the transfers, you've got Ethan Groff, comes from Tulane, hit 404 last year, 709 slugging percentage. He can also run over 30 stolen bases last year. So he, to me, looks like your leadoff guy, your center fielder, because he also only had 1 error last year in right field for Tulane. Tulane's not a bad baseball school. And then the other guy that you mentioned, Ethan Leger, he's going to be the third baseman, right? He also was drafted just like Saunier, but he was drafted 16th in the 16th round by Milwaukee. Now, he comes from Delgado Community College in New Orleans. He hit 399 last year. So you've got good guys that can, easily fit into the middle of the lineup. But the other thing that's really important is how good the defense has the potential to be on this team, because I already mentioned Groff with Tulane. You move McCants over to left field. Alderman has a cannon, which you would imagine they're going to put in right field. Jay's got a good arm. He played shortstop, so they're moving him to third base. Now, obviously, some footwork's going to be a little different, but he's got a good arm. Chatney is your defensive guy at second base. And then at first base, who's going to be replacing Elko on the field is transfer from Northwestern, Anthony Calarco. Hit 325 with 13 home runs last year.
He was a guy I may have missed on my list there. That he's probably someone I should have added in there as well as a name that, hey, you got the 2 Ethan guys. You got Anthony Calarco, who I'm going to be a fan of because I see he's from Illinois, and he's got to be a Bears fan, so I'm definitely probably going to favor him a little bit. But yeah, he's someone you can add there as well, right? If these guys produce and are as good as advertised or even close to where they were before, we're going to have a really good lineup, man. But if they're average, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah. Now, the other question is going to be who your DH is, and that's where you can start getting into. We already mentioned Taiwan. Taiwan, who's who was hitting the cover off the ball during early practices. But we start talking about some of the freshmen that are being brought in, and when we were talking about Alabama and your Georgia during football, you talk about depth and how they're able to plug in 4 or 5-star recruits in any of these positions. Ole Miss baseball is where we can have that similar conversation, right? Because if you've got guys that are not, if they're not producing and on the mound or in the lineup, you've got studs that have come in from high school that are ready to go. And one of the guys that you could see at DH is a guy named Will Furnace from Nacogdoches, Texas. If that last name sounds familiar, he's the son of LSU's Eddie Furnace, who was inducted into the College Hall of Fame, the College Baseball Hall of Fame. He is a first base recruit. The kid can hit. He was the 4th best first baseman recruit in the country. And so he's probably going to be your DH at least a little bit until we kind of figure it out before conference play begins. So Will Furnace, you've also got Jordan Vera, who is a pitcher who may get to see some time as a midweek starter, maybe in the bullpen. His uncle, fun fact, is John Schneider. He's the current manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. So you got a little baseball pedigree with him as well. And you also got Mason Morris from Tupelo playing. He's an infielder, shortstop, but he can also pitch. So there are plenty of guys that can come in if some of these transfers are not getting it done or some of the names that we think are going to get it done aren't. You've got a roster, a very deep bench of freshmen that should be able to get in there and compete with the best of them.
Yeah, if you look at some of the guys we brought in some really good size. Furnace is a big kid. Judd Uttermark's a big kid. There's a lot of big, good looking freshmen. I've heard some good things about this Furnace kid though. So, I've talked to some guys in the program that say, hey, this kid can smash the ball. So, here's the question, right? Every year, Ole Miss has the TJ McCants, the Jacob Gonzalez, the guys that come out of nowhere as a freshman this past year was Hunter Elliott. It's going to be fun to see who is going to be the next household name in this class. Like, I mean, that's literally one of my favorite parts about Ole Miss baseball. Every year, we always at least have one guy. There's always one guy that comes out of nowhere. It's like, man, it was Servideo the one year. We knew who he was, but we knew he was going to be that good.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, I feel like there's a guy that comes out of nowhere. And I'm excited to see who that is this year. And it could furnish as a good candidate for that.
Yeah, and one of the freshmen from last year that really impressed me when we were in Omaha was Mason Nichols coming out of the bullpen in those big spots, right? He may be the closer this year, or Jack Doherty. He's back as well. Replacing Mallets in the bullpen is going to be really important. So are guys like Mitch Morrell, are they going to take the next step, or we're going to have to turn to some of those freshmen? You've got Sam Takoyan, Brady Disbro. Those are highly recruited freshmen that have come to Oxford this season that may have to compete, especially if we're not able to get outs in the bullpen. Because like I said, for me, that's the biggest question mark on this team. Yeah, replacing Elko and Graham, that's not an easy task whatsoever. But you've got some experience there that I think is going to be able to do that. Yeah. Finding arms that are able to get outs out of the bullpen is where I think the money is going to be made this season. Those are going to be the things that I'm looking for early on in this season. The other interesting thing is there's only one left-hander in the bullpen altogether. If you don't count Xavier Rivas, who may be starting, he's a lefty, but you've got Jackson Kimbrell. He's the only left-handed guy in the bullpen, so it'll be interesting to see if not having those types of matchups later in the game has any effect on the game. So it will be kind of interesting to see what happens there too.
Yeah, should be a fun year, man. You going to make it out to any games this year?
I don't know. I mean, I'll be in Mississippi mid-March. I think they're playing Maryland that weekend. I may try to catch a game on Sunday or something, but I'm not sure. Now, did you get a chance to see any of the new rule changes that they're doing in conference play this year?
I didn't. I saw a report on them. I did not look into it and read it. What were they? What were they entailing? Apparently, it's something to do with the pitching clock or something.
Yeah. So there are changes to the pitching clock, but the big change is in conference games. There's a 10-run rule, right? So
I did see that. Yeah. So there was some good heated discussions over that. So I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I mean, dude, 10 runs. I mean. Yeah, you can come back from 10 runs, but a lot of the times you don't. I would say you look on your schedule and there's very few and far between times where you do it. Maybe it saves the bullpen. Yeah. I'm cool with it, right? Like, hey, 10 runs, if I'm a coach, like, of course you can try to come back, but at the end of the day, man, it's not happening a lot, and you probably get more out of saving your arms than you do actually keep trying to come back.
Yeah, like when Tennessee came to Oxford last year and they beat our brains in, once you start getting to – hey, it's the 7th inning, 8th inning, and we're down 12, 13 runs. I don't just end the game. It's been long enough because it takes so long to get to that point anyway in terms of game time. Dude, just end it. Save my arms. I don't want to have to throw position players out there. God forbid, I don't want to burn up any arms that I may need for the following game. So, yeah, just end it. Now, the 10-run rule is also available in non-conference games, but the losing coach has to consent to it. So that's the only caveat there. Conference play, once it's 10-run, I believe it's the 7th inning, then the game is over. The decision has been made. But non-conference games, it can happen as well, but the losing coach has to give their consent. Now, to your point about the pitching clocks, so between at bats, it's a 30-second timer. Same thing for mound visits, right? I mean, anything to speed up the game of baseball. You're also seeing this a lot in Major League Baseball, an incorporation of a pitch clock. Making the batter stay in the batter's box to get that to continue that at bat going without too many dead spots, and then you also have a 2-minute 30-second clock for pitching changes. So those are just kind of a supplement to the NCAA rules that were already in place. But anything to speed up the game, right? I'm sorry, I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. I've been in a fantasy baseball league for the last 15 years, but I don't want to watch a 4-hour baseball game. I just don't, especially when the ball's in play for only a fraction of the time of that.
Yeah, I know.
And our producer, Patrick, has really given us a lot of grief. I know he's I'm sure he's a real traditionalist and doesn't believe in the DH or any of that shit either. But yeah, I mean, look, I in this day and age, you got to keep people's attention span. And the one way to do that is to keep the game moving, keep the ball in play. So I'm all for it. I don't need if the coach is out there coming to the mound, I don't need it to be a 2-minute visit, 30 seconds and get out of there.
Yeah, I know. We should go with the Trevor Bauer motto, where if you walk a guy, you got to give him a free heater. We can just start getting real creative with baseball.
Yeah,
You ever seen that podcast, dude? So I guess like when they do live ABs versus each other, if you walk the guy, then you got to give him a free fastball down the middle. So,
that's pretty interesting. No, I hadn't heard that, but anything like that. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to Major League Baseball, but they're banning the shift this year, so they're trying to keep the ball in play.
Wait, there's no shift in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, so what they would do is they would take, for a big pull lefty, maybe your Joey Gallo types, they would move maybe the third baseman over into kind of short right field to, since they're mostly pull hitters, to try to eliminate them getting those hard hit balls through the hole. So a lot of batting averages took a huge dive with the incorporation of that. So now when the pitch is thrown, you have to have two infielders to the left and the right of second base, right? You can't have three infielders on one side of either base. They're trying to, keep the ball in play, but more importantly, keep some of those, what used to be hits, make them hits once again. So that's one of the big changes. And they actually made the bases wider. They made the bases bigger in Major League Baseball. Now, I don't know if any of that's going to change in the college game. Obviously, not for this season. But some interesting changes.
How do you feel about the shift? I don't mind it, right? I think it's just like the forward pass in football, right?
Yeah.
Like they've gotten so smart on offense and stuff that defense is really suffering now. But I mean that's just the kind of evolution of the game, right? You start getting smarter ways to figure out the game, and hell, you're opening up one side of the field, right? Go the other way with the ball. Go the other, force you to hit the other way, right?
Yes, I used to think that way, but when you start listening to how these guys are going up against guys that throw 95, 100 miles per hour throughout the entire game, right? You've got relievers that are coming in that are specialists, lefty on lefty that are throwing, 95 sidearm with all kinds of ungodly breaking stuff, and you're asking them to go the other way when you're not really compensating them to do that. You're paying these guys to hit the ball out of the ballpark, to get the ball up in the air. Now you want them to drop a bunt down the third base line just to get on base. That's not really what they're getting paid for, right? And they're not going to stop doing that because, okay, you're going to bunt it over the third, I'll make the next guy do the same thing. So yeah, I understand the point of, hey, go the other way with it, but a lot easier said than done for them to be able to do that because they're being paid to pull the shit out of the ball, knock it out of the park. And why would I change that approach all of a sudden just to try to hit it the other way?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. If you think of that, if you forcing your home run hitter every time to have to hit it the other way or something, you're ruining the game. So I can see that argument as well. Or you just hit it over their damn head off the wall,
Right. So it'll be interesting to see, spring training has already started. Pitchers and catchers have reported. So we'll see what some of these early spring training games look like in Major League Baseball and how that goes, because I would imagine that some of those rules may translate to the college game, especially since you're going to be asking those guys to eventually make the next step and play in the majors. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Baseball season, we're going to be reporting on it, pretty much the entire season. I'm so excited because, like we said, basketball season has been it's been a depressing drag, especially on the men's side. The women are keeping strong. They are playing well. They keep going. They're probably going to be in the NCAA tournament, but man, the men, another embarrassing loss to South Carolina at home this past week.
And I watched that one. That's just, man, some teams I've been on some teams that are like this. Luckily in the NFL, not a ton, but like they just don't know how to win. Like even games they should win and should have won, it's like they don't feel comfortable winning. It's
tight, the oddest, dude. They play so tight.
Oddest thing I've ever seen, man. Like, and it's sad. It really is sad because I don't think our talent is this bad.
It's not.
I really don't. I mean, it's from a recruiting ranking standpoint, it's probably one of the best that we've had in a long time. So
and we've made this point before. You look at the players that have transferred out of Oxford and gone elsewhere. They're thriving in these other environments, right? So that alone is kind of a telltale sign that something is not right in this program. And I would be flabbergasted at this point if changes aren't made. So we'll see what happens. I would imagine that at this point, if he's not gone after the loss to South Carolina, I imagine we're just waiting until the end of the season. Which we'll see what happens there. But yeah, at this point, I would be stunned if a change isn't made at the top.
Yeah, there's been some names thrown out there in the basketball search. You've seen Will Wade. There's been a bunch of people thrown out there, so it'll be interesting to see where they go in that route. I know Ben. Whenever we're always on, when we talk to him, he always says Ole Miss is a tough job basketball wise, not an attractive job. I just, man, anything. If they would just throw some money in it, I feel like it would be attractive, right? We have a great facility, we have a great campus, all that, but it's just like anything else, man. They just play third fiddle to football and baseball here, and that's why I don't get too upset about basketball, right? I mean, there's not a
what you pay for, right?
Yeah, no kidding. You get what you pay for there. And until we decide as a program, hey, we're going to actually invest heavy in basketball, we're going to be a middle of the pack team if to down, most likely. So.
Yeah, the baseball winning the national championship might have been the worst thing to ever happen to the basketball program because more attention and more money is going to go there as opposed to the basketball program. So good for baseball, but it may be, that may be the people that suffer is the basketball program because Ben's right. I mean, it's one of the toughest jobs in the SEC to win to win at, and so you're not going to have your top tier candidates that want to come to Oxford, especially when there's not going to be a commitment like you're seeing at the other sports.
Yep, agree there, man. That'll be a fun search. It'll tell me a lot of where they're thinking basketball wise. If they're going to go after an assistant, if they're going to try to go get a household name and right this ship, kind of like Auburn did.
Yeah, that will definitely tell you where the market is on the program based on what they're able to get. If they're able to get a mid-major guy, his name is escaping me at the moment, but there's a kid, the coach at Florida Atlantic, right there. They've been ranked all season. He's got a relationship with Michael White, who's now the coach at Georgia. Obviously, he played at Ole Miss. If they could get a player like that or a coach like that, I think that would be great. But if he's not interested, then, that's a kind of a telltale sign of that's where the program sits and how it's viewed among others around the country. Now, the women, on the other hand, we mentioned last week how the game against Kentucky on Monday was not a must-win, but it was a really important game considering what they have coming, and they beat the Wildcats handily. So that was pretty cool to see because now the big dogs are coming. They've got to play LSU, who just suffered their first loss of the season against South Carolina. They have to play LSU in Baton Rouge on Thursday, 8 o'clock on the SEC Network. So this will be a real good test for Coach Yo's crew to see what they're able to do, because I would imagine that they're going to be real hungry after that first loss to South Carolina, and it was a 20-point loss. I would imagine that they're going to be hungry and ready to go. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Coach Yo and them tackle that.
Yep, no question, man. It's always good to see it. Like I said last show, every sport doing well and competing, they should get a decent seat in the tournament.
Yeah, and then last thing that I wanted to hit on, I've got a little football news that we'll touch on in just a second, but we mentioned softball season. We did the preview last week on them. They're 4-2 right now, down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. They're still there. They're going to play this weekend too. 4-2, wins against teams like North Carolina, Wisconsin, North Dakota State. Both of their losses came against ranked teams, Oregon, Oklahoma State. So we'll see what they're able to do. They got Liberty and Southern Illinois on Thursday. So hopefully they can keep the winning ways going, down there in Mexico, and then they'll be back up in the States before long. And that home opener in Oxford's only a few weeks away. So that'll be circled on the calendar for sure.
Yep, no question, man. It's a good to see them get off to a good start, and I know we got a lot of new faces on that team, but it's hope maybe when these last three start out 7-2 is a solid set.
Yeah, and I said we're done with football, but there was a pretty interesting story that happened in Oxford this week. You've got another situation where a coach has left for the same exact position in the same conference. So running backs coach Markel Blackman left to take the same job at Texas A&M. So let's talk about that first. We've had this conversation before, but it bears repeating. Does it just feel like people don't have a good working relationship with Lane Kiffin?
I don't know. I mean, some say yes, some say no. But then on the flip side of that, the coach just came back. That was
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith came back, and he left Miami. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wish I was in the program. I know there's some guys that have been with him have enjoyed it. Some have not enjoyed it. So it's just one of those things, man. I mean, it's a it's weird. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, right? When a coach leaves, you got family stuff, you got money, you got, better, you guess you think's a better situation. But what we have to realize as fans is like, not every coach that comes gives two shits about Ole Miss. We're just viewed as a job, right?
Yep.
So if you're working for, let's say Napa, okay, auto parts, and all of a sudden AutoZone comes in and says, hey, bro, I'll double your salary. Are you going to care? No, you're going to go to you're going to go to damn AutoZone, right? So it's a different. It's in football, just a different thing. Like, hey, they maybe feel like that's a better situation. I would think Texas A&M would be a better situation. I think Jimbo Fisher's fired after this year, after he has his best season ever and goes 8-4 or whatever it is, or whatever. But I don't know. But for whatever reason, it's happening. And Lane is having no issue really replacing him. So we got Kevin Smith back, which is who recruited Quinshon. It is what it is. Running backs coaches, I was thinking D Nix would go back, but I guess that's not an option. So he's staying at wide receivers. But running backs coaches isn't going to make or break it, right? Like, no, Quinshon's going to be Quinshon with or without, whatever the coach's name, Blackwell.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, Kevin Smith is back. He he had a very illustrious career as a running back himself at Central Florida. And then he spent some time in Oxford before going to Miami, which is his hometown. So for him to leave his hometown to come back to Oxford, I mean, that's a good thing, right? We talk about Markel Blackwell and how curious that is that he left. For someone to leave their hometown and come back, I think that's pretty cool to see. And I'd imagine that Quinshon's pretty excited considering he recruited him like you were talking about.
Yeah, how about Henry Parrish? How do you think he feels down in Florida? He left all this to chase him down there. Now he's stuck back in Florida. So, I'm sure he's fine, but yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it does. And, as spring practice gets going here in the next couple of weeks, right? It's like football season never ends. We'll be talking about and see how these players are progressing. But I wanted to make sure to mention one of our sponsors, Jeff Griffin with Stevenson Griffin Group at Baird Private Wealth Management. You can go to the group's website at stevenson-griffin-group.bairdwealth.com or give them a call at 662-841-1900. Before we leave you today, I would not be doing my job if we did not get Bradley to tell us about what is going on in his softball world. So I'm just going to go ahead and sit back and let Bradley reminisce and tell us about how the last week has gone and what's coming up for his girls.
Well, we got a tournament this weekend in Oxford. It's going to be really, really cold. I'm excited about our squad. We got, we're one of those teams, we have no record because we're a new team, right? And we're going to show up on the scene in Oxford and we're just going to have a 0-0 record. People are looking at us like, oh, it's probably this new startup team. They have no clue. They have no clue what they're in store for. We are actually solid as a rock, and I'll be excited for us to play. We're not the best.
It's going to be an ambush, is what you're saying. It's going to be an ambush.
We're not the best team in the area yet, right? Because I haven't quite got into some of these parents' heads. But I will tell you this: we are not someone to overlook. I don't care who you are. We are not someone to overlook. You will struggle if you overlook us.
Well, there we go. There we go. And so yeah, if you're in town for the baseball game, make sure you go check out whatever park y'all are playing at. Maybe we can go check out Bradley's team and root them on. So go Knights, I think is what I'm trying to say.
That's right, baby.
All right. So make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get the Brad and Chad Show. Brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans. Also brought to you by Southern Craftsman. Nest and Wild Mattresses, powered by decades of experience and passion for improving your quality of sleep, backed by a 99-night guarantee. They will help you sleep easy. Made locally in Tupelo, Mississippi. Find them on Amazon or nestandwild.com. So yeah, Bradley, good luck this weekend. Good luck to the Rebels on the Diamond. It should be a fun weekend down in Oxford. And we'll talk next week to recap all of the makings that you have down in Oxford. All right.
See you, Chad. Howdy toddy.
Howdy toddy.
Thanks for listening to the Brad and Chad Show. Follow the boys on social media for more content. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been an OM Network production, brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans, made in the USA.